Hello ladies and gentlemen, this is Trisha with Insectopia, here to draw another insect with you today. I was going through my insects just trying to pick one to draw today, and I already had this grasshopper kind of up and underneath my microscope. Grasshopper up and underneath my microscope, so I thought that it could be cool to draw and look at a little bit. It's a small to medium-sized grasshopper, so I can't get it fully underneath the microscope, but we can see most of the specimen in like 2 or 3 views. Plus, I think that we can get most of the hind legs into one view. I find that when I try and draw grasshoppers that are significantly larger than this one, and we have to see that hind leg in 2 different views, it tends to be a lot trickier to draw. So just to give you an overall, just a look at this grasshopper as a whole, we've got the head up here. You can see that pronotum kind of arches around the top of the back. That's the top shield of the first segment of the thorax. And then as we are moving down, we've got a front pair of legs, a middle pair of legs. The front and mid legs are just for walking, so they're considered ambulatory legs. Then when we get to the hind legs here, they've got specialized hind legs for jumping. That's not going to surprise you. Those legs are called saltatorial legs. That means jumping. And if we look all the way down to the base of these legs, we've got these little tarsal segments here. We have spines at the end of the tibia and on the outside of the tibia. The spines that are up along the side of the tibia are generally going to be defensive. So if an animal comes and tries to eat it, they can kick with these spines. But then the spines down here at the base of the tibia are used to kind of grab onto the substrate and hold on and press off against. So these spines down here have a purpose, in that their purpose is going to be for actually pushing off against the ground and kind of helping with forward movement. Whereas these ones are primarily defensive. Hello, Robin! I hope that you are doing well today. Alright. This grasshopper I collected in Texas. This one was specifically collected at a rest area in Perryton, Texas, in 2021. Oh, my grand road trip. I loved that trip. This grasshopper was very colorful when I collected it, but it has now mostly faded down into browns. Keep in mind that grasshoppers do lose pretty much all of their color after they pass, and that's because the color in grasshoppers is a pigment. So pigments fade and structures do not. And so with insects like grasshoppers, praying mantids, and dragonflies, their color is pigments, so they'll generally fade to browns and beige colors. Whereas beetles generally are going to have a structural color, meaning that the color that they have comes from little microstructures along the outside of their exoskeleton that bounce light around. I am not going to be drawing with a pen today because, admittedly, I am quite a bit tired and have lots to do even after this live stream here tonight. So I'm not going to waste any more of our time. We're going to go ahead and get sketching this grasshopper here. So I have not identified this individual grasshopper to species yet. So all grasshoppers are in the family Acrididae. And that's where it is in my collection, is just with all of the other acridids. So that is what I'm going to write on my paper today. Acrididae is the family for what we call short-horned grasshoppers. It just means that it's kind of like your average grasshopper, but your average grasshopper has antennae that are shorter than their body. In fact, grasshoppers have antennae that are approximately a third of the length of their body. So that is going to be throughout all grasshoppers. And when someone says, I found a cricket, you can tell a cricket from a grasshopper just by the length of the antenna. Crickets and katydids both have antennae that are longer than the length of their body. So that is for all of you out there trying to identify these orthopterans by eye. Alrighty. When we are looking at this, and welcome everybody who's joined the live stream today. I'm looking forward to drawing with you, and if you want to say hi, go ahead and drop a comment in the chat. I love to hear from you. All right. The back of the head has a straight vertical line here, and then we're going to create a D shape for this head, kind of flat in the back and round along the front, although I'd like you to note that as we are sketching this D shape here, instead of just coming down, it does kind of come up over the edge a little bit before coming down. It's also slightly wider up here where the compound eye is, and slightly narrower where the mouth is. Do I have any measurements? I can get us measurements. So that is going to be how I start my head. I imagine it kind of D, but I kind of pull it up. Alright, I cannot get this grasshopper in totality underneath the microscope. So what I am going to do is I am going to measure it from the front of the head to... Alright, I'm going to measure it from the front of the head along the top, right here, to where the hind leg crosses over the top of the body. That should work. Alright, now I'm going to go ahead and scooch this specimen so that I can see the rest of the body. And I'm not changing the angle of the specimen, so I should still be able to get a true measurement. And then I'm going to measure from right around here until the end of the abdomen, not the end of the wings, which is going to be right around here. And then I'm going to add those two numbers together, and I will have you a full body length. That is 1.62 centimeters plus 0.93 centimeters. That is not an easy number. Let me check. 2.55 centimeters is going to be the length of the body from the front of the head to the back of the abdomen. Alright, after this head here, we're drawing the pronotum right here behind the head. I want to kind of stay flat. The head does kind of is a little bit bulbous up above. I'm going to draw a nice straight line here to start, and then once I get to approximately double the width of the head, that's where I'm going to stop, I'm going to come off just a little bit, and then I'm going to come back down at kind of an angle. I don't want the pronotal shield to match with the bottom of the head. I want it to end a little bit higher because the bottom portion of the head are actually mouth parts. So I want to make sure that that head does go a little bit further than that. Also, this right here is going to be where the front leg is. So the front leg is going to be coming up pretty much right up into the head and then kind of back down right around here. So that kind of gives you an idea as to where that leg is going. Alrighty, we got the head, we have the pronotum. We're moving back to this thoracic region. So we have, there is a sclerite, we would consider it probably the mesonotum, is coming at this kind of backward angle here. Let's see. I'm not going to worry about that right now. What we're going to worry about is our body shape. So I want to make sure that wing gets out in here, that wing goes nice and long. And then from here, I want to get this body kind of boxed out. So coming down, this right here is going to be right about, I need it to be not so low. So you want the bottom of the body to kind of line up with the bottom of that coxa right there. And then the middle leg is going to be kind of connected here and going up and back down. And then the hind leg is going to be right about here and coming up, but it's going to come up way higher than the top of the body here. So when I'm drawing one of these saltatorial or one of these really tall jumping legs, I'll create this kind of U shape at the bottom to make sure that that it starts off really nice and wide. And I like to imagine it's kind of like a bowling pin, so it gets kind of narrow up towards the top of the body, and then once you get up to the very itty bitty teeny tiny top, it's like a little knobby knee. I don't know, it looks kind of like a really stretched out bowling pin to me. And then you've got that rest of that leg. It's going to be coming mostly straight down here. That's that tibia. With all of those crazy spines that are going to be coming off in this direction. And then we've got tarsal segments, and there's going to be these big spines coming off of the bottom here. It's going to be great. So we've got head, we have thorax, that's where the front leg to the hind leg connects, and then we've got abdomen. So let me scooch this specimen down just a little bit. Oh, whoops! Robin said it's throwing us a little bit off that the drawing is opposite from the buggy, so I'm just going to flip the buggy. Sorry about that. I always draw my insects with their head to the right, and so even when my microscope is wonky, I just kind of move these things in my mind, but sometimes it doesn't occur to me that not everyone does that. Alright, so this is what the abdomen is going to look like just past this really big jumping leg. And keep in mind, this is just our really light first sketch. We're going to zoom in even further and finalize some of these details. The abdomen here is not incredibly long. I would say that the jumping leg is probably right about the halfway point of the specimen. So the abdomen on mine is going to be coming out right about here. So what I'm going to do is I measure it from the head to where that front of the jumping leg starts, and then I'm going to go to the back of the jumping leg, and that is right about where my abdomen is going to end. So I'm just going to kind of go ahead and sketch this abdomen coming out. But then, not only do you have the abdomen, but do you have the wings up at the top. So that's this straight line here. And the wings do go longer than the length of the abdomen. So make sure that that wing goes past the abdomen. Another thing we're going to worry about when we get to the abdomen is the lateral line. You can sketch that in now if you'd like, but I like to check out and see where the top segments meet the bottom segments. In the grasshoppers, it's really low, but it curves upward like so. So, on our drawing, I would kind of start that lateral line really low and then kind of angle it upward, but then make sure that the curve of the back of the abdomen right here kind of matches that angle coming up. Something like that. So this is what I'm kind of starting with. It's a really nice light sketch that includes a lot of what we saw. But also is still pretty vague. So we're going to zoom in and modify some of these details. Maybe it's just a bump on the exoskeleton. It almost looked like there was a little ocelli in front of the compound eye, but grasshoppers don't have ocelli. So, odd. There we go. Now the light came down. Alright, when I'm adding this compound eye, it's going to be up way up closer to the top of the head, because keep in mind a lot of this bottom stuff is actually mouth parts and not physically a piece of the head. So our compound eye is going to be right around here. I am noticing that it's a little more flat towards the front and round towards the back. So I am going to give it kind of a nice convex that's going to be fairly straight, straightened, but not all the way straight. And then on the back, I want it to be really nice and round. And that is going to be our compound eye here. You can go ahead and cross-hatch within it so that there are lots of little individual ommatidia inside of it. Your antenna is going to be right about here. So the first segment of the antenna connect to the head right about at the bottom third of the compound eye, if that's helpful for you. So right about here. They do have a scape, a pedicel, and a flagellum, just like other insects. They have a scape, a pedicel, and a flagellum. The scape is going to be that first kind of boxy segment right here. And then the pedicel is a square. It's a little bit, it's significantly shorter than the scape in this case. And then the remainder segments are the flagellum. I don't have the ability to count those because they go underneath the leg. Plus, grasshopper antenna, we don't count the segments. We just measure the antenna against the length of the body. In this case, my specimen, the antenna go down past the bottom of the body and end up right about here. So I'm going to take that angle and just flip it in the other direction, and I'm going to take my antenna to right about where the wings start. Kind of like, oh, broke the pencil. Kind of like that. And then all I want to do is kind of start at the end here, kind of start nice and narrow, and then gradually as I, oops, get back. I don't want to make it too wide though. Alright, there we go. We've got a nice long antenna. I'm just going to subdivide this into a number of segments so that these segments are longer than they are wide, right? We don't want to make them so small that they're little squares. We want them to be nice long rectangles. Alright. After that's all sorted, we've got the antenna, we've got the compound, we've got the antenna, we have the compound eye. Down here we have some mouth parts happening. Now admittedly, I have in the past spent lots of time worrying about grasshopper mouth parts, and then I'll put the front leg right on top of it. So this time we are going to skip the mouth parts, and then we will come back and we will draw the ones we can still see after we get the leg done. We're going to be tricky this time and see if it works. So I want to first worry about this pronotum here, and then we'll draw the front leg. So one of the things that I noticed right off of the bat, admittedly even when I was kind of measuring this jumping leg, is that I think I made this pronotum almost a little bit too long. So, or maybe it didn't come in far enough. So I'm going to keep... Maybe that was it. Maybe it just didn't come in. Alright, I think the top point is right there because it is about double the width of the head here. So I'm going to keep this line up to this point, but instead of having it kind of angled down this way, I'm going to cut in just a little bit more. And I want it to come in at a fairly strong angle where the wing is. So if you have the top and the bottom of your wing here, that's going to be, the pronotum is going to come in or about as tall as that wing was. And then once you get to that point, I want it to kind of nice and smoothly kind of wrap down in this direction. And then we're going to create a U shape here. So that's going to look like this. It's going to come down and then go back up. A U. Alright, now we've got this front leg to deal with. Leg parts. We can actually see them all on the front leg. That is coxa, then trochanter, femur, tibia, tarsi. There you go. A banner. Come on, specimen. There you are. Focus. There we go. Alright, this is the front leg that we are looking at here. The coxa is going to be this first kind of U shape, and admittedly it just went just off the screen. It was right here. Maybe I can scooch it back on. Very gently? Ah, very good. Okay, so this chunk right here, that's the coxa, and then this piece right here, that's the trochanter. So it's kind of like a knee joint that connects the coxa to the femur. It's going to kind of turn it in a 90-degree angle. It like kind of turns it and faces it up. That's the point of the trochanter. So we've got the coxa kind of where we know it's going to be, but a lot of times what I like to do is draw the femur and then finalize the coxa, because the femur is going on top of everything. So we know that the femur is going to be coming up towards the head. It's not going to interact with the eye very much, so I'm just going to draw kind of the femur kind of coming up in this direction. Now the top of the femur is convex, so it's kind of a little bulbous. The bottom side is a little flatter. That's fine. And then when you get down here to where the trochanter is, there is a little bit of a kind of a lip and a cup kind of shape. There's like this little bit of a cup kind of shape to the trochanter, and then the coxa is just going to kind of connect to that. Alright, so coxa, trochanter, femur coming up. Then we've got this tibia coming down. It looks fairly symmetrical, the top and the bottom, so it's not like it starts narrow and gets wider like a lot of our other tibia do. So we're looking at something like this, which also means that I think that we're going to be able to draw most of the mouth parts, which is quite exciting. And then we're looking at these tarsal segments. Now the tarsal segments are little toe segments, and they are looks like there are 3-ish? More than 3. Are those all segments, or are they not? this. It's just that the first one is kind of knobby. So this one goes from here to right about here, and it does have kind of these 3 bumps at the bottom, which makes you feel like it could be 3 segments here, but it is actually 1. And then you've got this one here, and this final one here. So that is 3. This first one has these 3 little U-shapes on the bottom, so I'm just going to kind of make it look a little bit knobby here as this first segment, and then it kind of comes out. So just like, a little knobbiness to the bottom of that there. Now the next segment is one of these lobed segments, so you've got it's kind of wider on the bottom than on the top, and then that last segment comes up out from the top. And I'm going to call that one more of like a raindrop segment. It's kind of narrow at the base, kind of wide and round at the tip. It's got 2 tarsal claws. And then in between the tarsal claws, there is a pad right here that almost looks like a little circular pad in between the tarsal claws. About the mouth parts. Let's see if I can get a good view from this side. That's gonna be fine, I think. Alright, mouth parts. If you wanted to make a mouth part sandwich, the top is the labrum, which is the upper lip, and then you have the mandibles, and the maxilla, and then the labia. That is a mouth part sandwich. Labrum is the top lip, mandibles are the chewy bits, the maxilla have all types of different adaptations, but have the maxillary pulps that help push food into the mandibles, and then you've got the labium, which is the bottom jaw. Mouth part sandwich. So when we're looking at the labrum of a grasshopper, that is going to be right about here. And if you were to look at it from the front, it looks like the letter B with 2 lobes. But from the side, it's just going to have kind of one roundy lobe here. So if I was drawing that on my guy here, it's actually, that labrum is going to exist right about where my front leg is going through. So that's what's going to really get messed up. But I'm going to kind of pull this line kind of horizontal, and then kind of just give myself, that's where the upper lip would be. Now, from past that, the rest of this stuff I should be able to draw correctly, which is the mandible is going to be this chewing mouth part from this drawing, from this image here. Oops, that's the yellow crazy ant. From this image here, this kind of triangular piece, that's the side of the mandible. So we've got kind of this mandible here. I kind of naturally kind of faced it forward, but it should be kind of a little bit more in like a downward. It's just because of the angle of my labrum, I think. That's better. Alright, so we've got this mandible here, and then behind it there is another piece. The maxilla is generally not visible from the outside, but the maxillary palps generally are. Then you've got the labium, which is going to be kind of the back jaw and also the back of the head. So I'm just going to kind of cut off one more right about there. And then we've got palps. I see at least one that is 3 segmented coming off of the back here. 1, 2, 3. And honestly, I'm going to leave it like that. I'm happy. I'm going to go back in and make sure that all these lines are dark enough. I'm not going over it with pen today. Alright, cool. Let's move on. I do like the kind of wrinkles, the wrinkly looking vibe of the texture of the pronotum. I think that that's kind of cool. Also, if you look at the actual texture of the tegmina, I like this kind of weird texture where all of the veins are like expanded a little bit over the surface, and you can see how they kind of catch light all pretty. I do like that. Grasshoppers have a very boxy thorax. This is important for the connections to their muscles so that they can jump all of the places. Keep in mind I moved my pronotum forward, so I'm going to be moving everything up just a tiny bit. So from the back of this pronotum here, I'm going to kind of drop it down. That's where my body is going to be, and I'm going to pull this line over. If I said from this to this is my body. Wait, we said this? Okay. Whew. Alright, so the thorax here is going to be very boxy, and that's because for an insect to have really strong muscles, it makes sense for those muscles to be connected to kind of this box. I'm going to work it from the front to the back, so it looks like our body, it does actually have a pretty squared off bottom, and interestingly enough, you can see the bottom of this thoracic region is pretty flat down here. Like right here is where I'm looking. As a side note, grasshoppers, when you pin them, even though they have incredibly strong muscles that they use to jump all the time, regularly grasshoppers spin on their pins. And entomologists, we hate it when the insects spin on the pin, because if you've pinned an insect, it should stay straight because the muscles tighten around the pin. But something about grasshoppers and dragonflies both don't actually connect to the pin well enough, so they end up spinning on it and then knocking into specimens next to him. Becomes a very frustrating thing. So for our front leg, or the middle leg, the middle leg is connected right about here, which is going to be right after that tip of that pronotum. So if you follow that pronotum edge down, that's going to be the front edge of the actual coxa. Being this plate here, this little circular plate, that's the coxa. This little itty bitty segment right there, that's the trochanter. Then you've got femur, tibia, tarsi. So we've got coxa that is mostly round here, and then it's going to come back up to just a little itty bitty tiny trochanter. So kind of a little bit like that. And then the femur. Now, the femur is equidistant at the base and the tip. It just looks like it gets wider towards the end because it's coming closer towards the microscope. But I want to draw my insect flat, which means that I'm just going to draw that femur going up in this direction. Make sure that the tibia is more narrow than the femur, right? Sort of like that. And then you can add those tarsal segments. Now the tarsal segments on the middle leg are going to be the same as the tarsal segments on the front leg, but if you would like me to zoom in and look at them, we can. This view gives you a better look at the, it gives you a better look at that pad in between the tarsal claws. So from here we have this first tarsal segment that is kind of almost like textured on the bottom. It's got 1, 2, 3 kind of lobes on the bottom. And then the second one is really short and at an angle. And this third one, it connects to the second one, but way up at the top. And this is a raindrop segment. It's going to be kind of wide at the base, narrow at the base, wide at the end. Tarsal claws with the pad in between. Now that I've worried about that front leg and getting it situated, I do want to make sure that those muscles towards that leg get built. So we know that that wing is connected to that angle, so under the angle, that's where these diagonal lines are going to go, and they're going directly to this coxa. So it's going to be something like this. These are not actual, like, separation in, these are folds, not separate sclerites. They're not separate pieces of the exoskeleton. They're just folds in the exoskeleton. So, for that case, I generally don't like to make them touch at the beginning or the end, just so that that annotates to me a fold and not a suture. A sulcus and not a suture. The next thing that I'm looking at is the connection of the hind leg. Keep in mind I am moving this leg forward a tiny bit, or as my mother would say, a skosh. Just an itty bitty bit, because I want to make sure that that hind leg is starting right here. So I'm going to be connecting that part here. I'm going to call it kind of the shape of an upside down bell, but it's going to be kind of like this. We're going to create an angled, I guess it's a D shape. It's a straight line and kind of a loop down here. And then I'm going to be adding that. Femur to this. So it's going to end up sure that this... Okay. Let's go look and see if we can get the entirety of that hind leg in focus. The legs are fabulous. And you know what? This grasshopper used to be so colorful. I do love that red stripe on the top of the femur, but I don't know if you can tell this, but the tibia used to be blue. Alright, the narrowest part of this hind leg is going to be way up here, but you know what? I don't even think I made my hind leg long enough when I sketched it. It needs to be way over top of the body here. So let me go ahead and just kind of re-sketch this out a little bit. I'm going to angle it up a little bit higher. I'm happy that I had it started and I was able to kind of compare, but now it's time to get it done for realsies. So I'm going to try something more like that. Alright, so I'm happy with the height of this leg now, but I do need to kind of even out this shape here so that it is symmetrical along both sides. So where you've got one side of the leg getting wider, you need to make sure that the other side is doing the same. Looks like something weird is happening. We're just gonna blame the middle leg. I think that it distorted my drawing. There we are. Perfect. The other thing that I like to do is I really love the chevrons. I really love the chevrons in the hind leg of grasshoppers. So there we go. I like to give myself a little bit of an outline so that I know where the chevrons are going. You can even see a little bit of a center line in the center there, so you can give yourself that. And then, now all we're going to do is we're going to make these little dark V's that meet at the center, and they're going to go all the way down. You want the V's to be equally as wide as the white space that you leave in between them. I did not count how many there were. I just went with my heart. And then this is what the top of a spinning it. This is what the top of a grasshopper femur looks like and how it's connected to the tibia. So if you wanted even more fine detail on the top of your femur, you can create that little bit of a channel there on the top. Kind of like that. Right like that. Chevrons for the vibes. Totally. And then we've got this structure coming down and the tibia. Alright, tibia is going to come straight down. We've got some tarsal segments. Let's get this tibia down and then we'll zoom into the tarsal segments down here because there's some fun stuff happening down at the bottom. But I do want to just keep this view so that we can see this portion. Let's see. make sure your tibia stays nice and narrow. Alright, so I've got that long tibia. Now, we do have those tibial spines along the outside. There are actually 2 rows of spines, but only 1 row is visible if you are looking at it from a directly lateral perspective, because they are in 2 rows. Now this is the wicked part. The end of this tibia here has 3 large, kind of claw-like spines. Yeah, 3. There's going to be 1 kind of right here at that center that's nice and big, and then there's 2 more. I'm only drawing 2 because I can see the really... My pencil's not big enough. Alright, let's see. Alright, I've got my tibia here, and then I want to add these spines, so I'm going to go 1 right about here, 1 right about here. The other ones are kind of on the other one is kind of on the other side, so I don't know if I want to draw it. And then we've got tarsal segments. We still got 3, even though that first one is that weird lobiness. So we're going to say this right here, and we're going to go 1, 2, 3. I'm sure that those lobes on that first tarsal segment are going to help with like holding on, like with friction. And then you've got that raindrop segment that's narrow in the base, round on the end, has 2 claws, and then in this grasshopper, also a little pad in between the claws. Alright, we have a front leg, we have a middle leg, we've got a hind leg. Let's go back and look at the body coming up to the hind leg, because I think, yep, we have at least 1 more sulcus, 1 more line to kind of sketch in here, just like that. Oops, didn't turn this on. That's fine. Just 1 more little diagonal line in here that's going to lead to that hind leg. He's so cute. I love him. Oh, come on. Catch up, computer. Oh. Camera's paused. There we go. Alrighty, I am looking at wings at this point. I wanted to see what they looked like at the base. Now I want to look at and see how far out they go. So they're right about there. Oh, I can't base the wings off of the abdomen if I've shifted everything. Alright, we're going to do the abdomen next rather than the wings. We'll do wings last. So much stuff happening. Alright, so this is our grasshopper's abdomen. I'm just going to go ahead and erase this, what I had here from my abdomen, because I'm moving everything up a little bit and I'm shifting things. Are the spines at the end of the tibia seen in other grasshoppers? I've not seen them before. Yes, they are. The spines at the end of the tibia here that are really, really helpful for grabbing and pushing are found in other grasshoppers. The number of spines at the base of the tibia will actually define different families of grasshoppers. So your average grasshopper is gonna look like this, but your pygmy grasshoppers and your lubber grasshoppers are in different families, and so their tibia will be slightly different. We talked about how from here to here is half of the body, right? So if we measure from the front of the head to where that jumping leg starts, that it should be the length of the abdomen past. Make sure you get that jumping leg in the center of your body. And so that's why I had to re-measure my abdomen. That's why I erased it. So right there, that's where my abdomen is going to end. It's going to be right about at that line there. And that's the very, very tip of the abdomen. I'm more happy with it a little bit shorter than that. It's going to be a tiny bit shorter than than that. Yeah, that's better. Okay, cool. Alright, so I'm going to give myself a nice light sketch to see whereabouts I'm working with. I want to get this wing kind of straight across here so that I know where the wing is going to be disrupting the abdomen here, where it kind of separates out. So something like this. Now, I also want to make sure I have that lateral line resketched in here, so that's going to be along the bottom of the abdomen. When I say lateral line, I'm talking about where the tergites meet the sternites, or where the top segments of the body meet the bottom segments of the body. Tergites are on the top, sternites are on the bottom. And sternites are sometimes called ventrites. For a reason. I honestly have not figured that out yet. I think we just use them interchangeably. I agree. Their legs are very nifty. Alright, so there is a whole lot of stuff happening right here at the end of the abdomen, but back here in the beginning it's a lot simpler. So we're going to work our way up to what is happening here. And that is, we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 segments of the abdomen before it gets complicated. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I'm going to call it actually 6. So I'm going to say right about here is where it gets complicated, and I'm going to divide from here to here with 6 segments. Now that first one is going to be mostly behind the leg, so this one is going to be like this. That's number 1. Alright, and then we're going to try and divide this evenly. So that's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then it's going to be just a little bit further than I expected. Nope, I have to shrink these segments. Alright, I'm going to try again. That's why we do it lightly. I got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, so now I've got nice light lines that come down and go over. These segments here come down, meet the line, and come back over. There is some differentiation between the top and the bottom. It meets up so well, though. Oh, I see what we can do. Okay, so for these segments, I'm going to be taking them down pretty much to where the lateral line is, and I'm gonna go just slightly past it and then come back up. I don't want this to stack like a a wasp abdomen. So instead of like shingling it like you would do a wasp, in between all of the segments, I'm just gonna create these little U's, but I don't want them to be significant. I just want them to be, like, I want them to be there, but I don't want them to be super duper obvious that that's what we're doing. Alright, so just enough to make a difference. Kind of like that. And then for these bottom segments, I just want the lines that go from the middle to the bottom, I'm going to have them as like a right parenthesis leaning. So just slightly off kilter. Kind of like that. And then I'm going to stack these. So, bloop, bloop. Alright, so we've got tergites, we have sternites, we've got all 6 of those. Now we're going to zoom in and we're going to check out what's happening at the back of this abdomen. Master grasshopper. This is true. Normally when they say oh, I was looking at a spherical. Sometimes I just look at random parts of the buggy when I'm curious about them in the midst of chit-chatting with you, and I noticed that I could see a spherical here, so I was checking it out. If I was gonna take a guess, I would guess that this is male. Emphasize the word guess. It's primarily because this right here looks quite a lot like a grasper, and pretty much only the males are going to have graspers. There's a lot of stuff happening here. I'm kind of excited about it, but let's see. So this, so the bottom segment of this abdomen right here is mostly complete. So we're just going to worry about the top ones up here. So we've got one more that that's this one here that kind of comes down and angles back, but it doesn't have a bottom segment to match it. So this one right here is going to kind of come out, go down. So we've got one here on the top that does not have this bottom piece. And then from here, I'm going to give myself a little loop up towards the top of this. Kind of like, and a little bit of an S type shape, like a stretched S, and then it's going to come back through. I'm going to make it a little bit straighter than, because I have it pretty round in the original drawing, but I want that part to be straight. And then I do have another additional kind of little triangular guy up here, so if you want, you can add that little triangular guy there. Now coming up from the bottom, I'm just going to do the outline, which is this line here. So this is what it looks like so far. And then I need to add, coming up kind of aligning with this, alright, aligning with that lateral line, I want to come out and give myself a little bit of a point. That point, admittedly, is another segment, so you can add yourself a little bloop there and give it, now it looks like a fishy, And now we just have to give it the graspers, which is loop up, loop down, and point. A little grasper right there. And you can see the grasper on the other side, but I'm not going to worry about sketching it just yet. And then there is a little pokey thing coming up right there. If you wanted to add the little pokey guy, he's right there. It looks right there, a little pokey. Alrighty. Let's look at the wings. Now we can see kind of the wings and how this relates to our specimen as a whole. So the top of the wings are nice and straight. They're going right here, across. Alright. Kind of sharp on the top, looping on the bottom, and then coming back towards the body. We already had these lines situated, and honestly, I'm pretty happy with where I sat my wing to begin with. And we've based a lot of stuff off of them. So just getting the outline of the wing in here, I'm happy with. Now keep in mind that grasshoppers do have 4 wings, tegmina and membranous wings. So there's a whole lot of stuff happening. And also, generally, tegmina aren't going to have wing venation, not like we talk about with membranous wings. So, if you want, you can draw wing venation in here, but that's not going to be kind of necessary, I guess. But if you were going to, I would do it more at the end, and I would just kind of create some kind of upward lines come in here, and then kind of brick it out a little bit. Give a whole bunch of crosses in there. So you've got some kind of wing venation. And then as it works its way up to the front, up in the front, it was more kind of checkerboard looking. So I did it really lightly, and instead of giving myself wing venation, I just added essentially wing texture, right? Some really wide kind of crosses down to some kind of brick pattern. I think it looks cool, and it's realistic as to what I'm seeing. Now I think the wings just got a little bit long. Huh, how'd that happen? That's better. Alrighty, that is our cute little grasshopper for the day. I am actually pretty happy with it. I think that they're pretty cute. Grasshoppers are one of those insects that I have a special connection to because as a little kiddo, I would collect grasshoppers. I'd chase them around my backyard and I'd collect them with my hands. Sometimes that required making sure I was sneaking up on them with my shadow behind me and then jumping on them before they jumped away. But then I would catch them and I would feed them grass. So you just like find me sitting in a field holding a grasshopper, kind of hand force feeding it food, because you can watch their mandibles move and then you can watch them eat, and I think that that's pretty cool. They do spit on you. Sometimes people call grasshopper spit tobacco juice. But the spit that grasshoppers use to defend themselves is mixed up plant juices and their digestive enzymes. So it's literally puke. Like, it's little bits of the plants that they have eaten mixed up with their stomach acid. And it doesn't taste very good, and it doesn't smell very good, so it makes them unappetizing to eat, which is why they do it. Yep, and that's it. We're gonna end, so the live stream normally goes an hour and a half or 2 hours, but we are going to cut it just a little bit early today. I have some more things that I've got to do before the end of the day. Haha. So I really, really enjoyed all of you hanging out with me today. There are 6 of you out there right now, but I want to say a special thank you to Robin and Tifa and Bags and Sewing Nancy. All of you messaged me in the chat room, and it made me feel like I wasn't speaking alone in a room. So I really appreciate having questions to answer and people to watch. But you know what? If you're out there quietly drawing too, that is totally fine with me. I hope that you continue to come back and enjoy your time. This is all of the things. I teach on a platform called OutSchool for students ages 5 to 8, 9 to 12, 13 and up. I'm doing a whole bunch of new advanced beetle identification for some students over here, so that's been lots and lots of fun. Over there is my link, it's not a link, but it's like just a reminder to subscribe to the YouTube channel, because when you do, you'll get a little notification of when I go live. Down here is a QR code that'll take you to my PayPal that'll help you donate or buy me a coffee. That's super appreciated. This is what I do full time now. I travel and I teach about insects. I do insect outreach. I bring live animals into classrooms and into libraries and into schools, not only in my region but in other cities too. So this weekend I will be in Portland, Maine, and next weekend I will be in Philadelphia. So if you're in either of those regions, shoot me an email and let me know, and I'll let you know where and when I'll be teaching. I hope that you all have a fabulous rest of your week. I look forward to seeing you next week, and I'm even going to write a note to myself. Next week, I had a special request to draw an ichneumon wasp. And we've drawn 2 ichneumons in the past, but I have so many species of ichneumon wasps that I'm cool with drawing another one. So we'll be drawing a wasp next week. I hope that you all have a fabulous rest of your week, and stay buggy.